On Shabbat, holidays, and other festival meals, many Jews begin Birchat HaMazon, or grace after meals, with the beautiful words of Shir HaMalos. I recently heard a beautiful rendition of the song by musician Joey Weisenberg, and even before Shabbat begins, the words are in my head. I'm thinking about a time when our fortunes will be restored like the streams revive the desert. Then those who have sown in tears shall reap in joy. Those who go forth weeping, carrying bags of seeds, shall come home with shouts of joy, bearing their sheaves. I know that it's really hard for some of us to see beyond this pandemic right now. I also know that some are doing okay. And unfortunately, there are others who are part of the growing number of unemployed, a rate that's not been this high since the Great Depression. And they have to depend on their local food banks for their next meal. Normal, whenever that's restored, might feel like a dream. But just as streams revived the desert, I have to believe that we'll bounce back from this. In fact, it's the only productive use of my energy right now. But I'm not depending on God for that. I'm depending on the way communities come together to support one another in times of spiritual and economic crisis. There's a reason we sing this song after our Shabbat meal. We've begun our day of rest, and we're in a 25-hour period of hibernation and spiritual exploration. Hazorim bedima barina yiksoru. Those who have sown in tears shall reap in joy. If the past week has been an emotional roller coaster, perhaps the past 2 months as well, now is the time to allow our souls to break from that as we permit ourselves to experience just a little bit of joy. This Shabbat, we read from Parshat Emor. One verse that really stuck out to me was Leviticus 21:17. And it wasn't because I thought it was a particularly beautiful verse. In fact, it was because it did not sit well with me. The verse says that no man with a defect can offer food to his God. No man at all who has a defect shall be qualified. No man who is blind, lame, or has a limb too short or too long. No man with any sort of defect. The verse goes on to list all sorts of defects that prevent someone from the priestly family from taking part in priestly activities. But I have a question for you. Are there any among us who don't have a defect? No. Because we're all imperfect in some way. And I think that's actually a beautiful thing. I'm going to tell you a story. In 2010, 7 months after graduating from college with my bachelor's degree, I was diagnosed with a strange ear condition called Meniere's disease that required me and requires me to wear a hearing aid. I was 22, and the doctors all said that I was oddly young to be getting this. Today, I can barely hear out of my left ear. Many of you know this, because despite scientific advances in hearing aid technology, I have to lean in and concentrate extra hard when many of you are talking to me. Being hearing impaired is tough, and I actually do consider it to be a disability. But I've also come to see it as an opportunity to connect for creating empathy with others when I might not have an obvious bridge of connection. I think that our varying abilities and disabilities, whether it's blindness, deafness, limbs that are too short or too long, all of these create points of empathy between us and others so that we can connect even though we might not have any other shared experiences. My teacher, Dr. Devorah Weisberg, has been sending daily teachings during the quarantine, and in one of her recent ones, she shares a question that she heard at a lecture. The person asks, "Are we children of God, or are we cosmic orphans? Are we children of God, or are we cosmic orphans?" Rabbi Weisberg goes on to explain, right now, many people would probably opt for the latter. We are in a world where we feel frighteningly alone, isolated from family and friends, and perhaps feeling estranged from God as well. But our liturgy asserts, "We are your people, the children with whom you are in a covenantal relationship." Each of us has permission to address God and give voice to that which we need: strength, courage, support, God's love, and faith. God's love is not dependent on submission or mindless acceptance of our current reality. God loves to hear from us, both when we are satisfied with our situation and when we are not. My blessing to each of you this Shabbat is to use your varying abilities to speak out to God and reach out to your communities. And the connections made between us and God and us with one another will restore us like streams in the desert. Shabbat Shalom.